Morning, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Mike's MMA Picks Fight Morning Quick Card Breakdown, brought to you by MMA Oddsbreaker as well as BetDSI. We're back for UFC 243. We're headed to Melbourne, Australia. We've got a tremendous fight at the top of the card with the main event between Robert Whittaker and Israel-Adesanya. Looking forward to that one. 11 fights on this card. Thank goodness we didn't lose any. We had a few missed weight. A few folks missed weight. So let's get things kicked off. We're going to burn through this card right now. First fight of the night, we've got Khalid Taha taking on Bruno Silva. Bruno Silva, limited tape on him. 7,300 in DraftKings, plus 190 underdog. Comes in with a 66-inch reach. 11-3-1 record. Team Nogueira fighter has spent some time with the champion Henry Cejudo. Explosive fighter, BJJ black belt, has a tremendous noggin on him, similar to Rafael Assunção. A few things that stuck out to me is you look at his record, and he actually went to a draw with Casey Kenny, who's proven to be a legitimate prospect in the UFC. Khalid Taha comes in with a 13-2 record, fighting out of Germany, has spent some time at AKA, 26 years of age, 8,900 in DraftKings, minus 240 favorite. Last time we saw Khalid Taha out, he disposed of Boston Salmon in devastating fashion. Very impressive in that performance. Prior to that, we saw Khalid Taha fight up a weight class on short notice against Nad Narimani. I was impressed by Taha in that performance. He, although was taken down numerous times, was able to find his way back to the feet. He's a power puncher, has an incredible will and self-belief. Bruno Silva, when you're scoping out underdogs on this card, he may be a piece of the puzzle. We're not sure exactly what we're going to get from Bruno Silva. He seems to mix things up. I would like to see Silva implement some of his jiu-jitsu on the ground. Let's see if he's able to transition, if he gets those takedowns. Watched weigh-ins yesterday. Taha came in overweight. Did not appear to affect him on the scales. We know that Taha can go 3 hard rounds if need be. He has 11 finishes on his record. I am going to be picking Taha to win this fight. Silva, I'll be honest, even though he had that fight in LFA against Kenny, still seems a bit of a mystery to me. At this weight class, at 135 pounds, first fight on the card, give me Taha to get the victory. This fight is supposed to end inside the distance at minus 125, though I could see this being another striking battle as the Kenny fight was. Next up, we have women's 125-pound division. We've got Ji-Yeon Kim at 8,700, South Korean fighter, taking on Nadia Kassem. Nadia Kassem coming in with a 5-1 overall record, 7,500 in DraftKings, plus 155 underdog. Kim coming in at minus 175. Last time out, we saw Kim take a unanimous decision loss to Antonina Shevchenko. We know that Kim is a stand-up fighter, prefers to stick to her boxing. She does well when fighters stand in front of her. Nadia Kassem is a little bit of a almost like a feral cat the way she fights. She is very aggressive, doesn't possess much skill, wily. She gets caught on the ground. Last time out, she faced Montana De La Rosa, who is a legitimate prospect. But you look at Nadia Kassem and you wonder how in the hell did she get here? How did she get to the UFC? Who did she know? I'm a little shocked that this is such a closely lined fight. But then after watching the tape, I see that Kim has a tendency to fight to her opponent's ability, which makes this a little bit of a dangerous spot. Kassem's going to be fighting on home turf here. She is at a big disadvantage as far as the stand-up goes. One thing that sticks out to me about Kassem is just she's gritty. I think that's her best attribute. That she's willing to get into a dogfight. And Kim missed weight. She came in at 128 pounds. This line has dropped at a few different books out there. I'm going to pick Kim to win this fight just because I don't trust Nadia Kassem. Look at who she's fought in her mixed martial arts career. She's only 23 years old. How can you trust her in this spot? I can't. Kim, we know she may. Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu belts mean different things to different folks. In this spot, Kim is the more accomplished Jiu-Jitsu practitioner. Apparently, we'll see if that translates inside the cage later tonight. But give me Kim for a unanimous decision victory in this spot. Get back on track. Next up, we have got the women's 145-pound division. We've got Zarafam dos Santos at 6,800, one of the cheapest fighters on the card as far as DraftKings goes, plus 405 underdog. She's 5'10" with a 73-inch reach. She actually, believe it or not, has a longer reach than Megan Anderson. Megan Anderson, massive favorite in this spot, minus 520, 9,400 in DraftKings. This is Megan Anderson's fourth fight in the past 16 months. You look at Dos Santos, she hasn't fought since 2017, and you look at the level of competition that Dos Santos has faced. A lot of her fights have been squash matches. She comes in with a 6-2 record in this spot. 8-4 for Megan Anderson. Megan Anderson, that Kat Zingano fight, man. I wish we would have seen that play out. I think Kat Zingano would have grappled her way to a victory in that spot. In this case, we have a Megan Anderson who's going to be throwing out that jab, throwing elbows, knees, kicks. If this fight does hit the ground, which I don't suspect it will, who knows whose game it would be. Megan Anderson has been spending time at Glory MMA with James Krause, and we haven't seen any improvements in her game. Dos Santos likes to throw the jab out there. This is the first time Dos Santos is going to be fighting somebody who's even remotely close to the same size and height. And on home turf with the crowd behind her, I know it's a dangerous spot. I wouldn't lay, minus 520, but I'm going to be picking Megan Anderson to get this done inside the distance. I think the volume of strikes are going to be a difference maker here, and in DraftKings, that's what you want. I do see her getting the finish. This fight also isn't expected to go to a decision at minus 195 currently, so give me Megan Anderson to win by strikes. Next up, we've got a fascinating lightweight matchup between Brad Riddell and Jumeau-Lima. Mullarkey took a devastating knockout out of the hands of Alex Volkanovski back in 2016. Believe it or not, Mullarkey is still only 25 years of age. 7,600 in DraftKings, plus 155 underdog. All of the losses for Mullarkey have come at 145 pounds. Seems to be filling out a little bit, coming up a weight class here. Brad Riddell spent significant time kickboxing and has a legitimate Muay Thai career and credentials behind him. 8,600 in DraftKings, minus 175 favorite in this spot. We have Riddell coming in with a 71-inch reach, fighting out of City Kickboxing. In this spot, you look at Riddell's resume, and he has a win over Kenan Sang. This is Riddell's fourth fight of 2019. Few concerns here. Riddell, in the interviews I've seen, thinks that he's going to come out here and starch Mullarkey, and that all of the City Kickboxing fighters are going to come in and ice their opponents and go home. That may happen. Mullarkey seems like he has some resiliency to him. If he's able to survive the shots that Riddell's going to be throwing at him. Riddell is the much more technical striker on the feet. Watching and listening to different interviews for Riddell, he actually has shown a bit of humility. He said that when he began his mixed martial arts career, he spent a lot of time leaving the gym early, leaving classes early, sneaking out the back door due to frustration and just not his head being in the game. So he hasn't made this transition that long ago. He only has a 6-1 overall record. Mullarkey has spent more time in the cage, and Mullarkey seems to have trouble in the early parts of the round. So Riddell, I think we're going to see him come in here and not necessarily throw at high volume, but be the more precise striker, land the heavier shots. And I see Riddell getting the win here inside the distance. The challenge is if Riddell blows his load, he's going to be in big trouble. Mullarkey, if he doesn't get stopped, isn't going to go away. And I am going to pick Riddell inside the distance. But if you want a sneaky GPP play at 7,600, if Mullarkey is able to survive Riddell's early onslaught, then Mullarkey may be an option for you. Next up, let's head into the 170 division. We're going to head up to welterweights here. We've got Maki Piloto, Coconut Bombs, coming in at $9,000. $9,000 in DraftKings, minus 355 favorite. This line has widened. You, at one point, were able to get Pitolo in the minus 230 range. Taking on Callan Potter, 7,200, plus 285 underdog. Callan Potter, local fighter, 17-8 record, 35 years of age, 10 submission victories on his record, has been flatlined a few times. Most recently, Jalen the Tarantula Turner put his lights out. Pitolo is not somebody that you want to stand in front of and mess around with. Potter should have the advantage here on the ground, especially also from a grappling edge. Pitolo, I suspect, will be one of the highest owned fighters out there in DraftKings land. His most recent fight, you watch him on the Contender Series. How often do you see somebody win crumpling somebody up by body shots? And that's what happened. He beat a worthy opponent in that matchup. Pitolo, this fight is not expected to go to a decision at minus 365. If you're looking to make a play on this fight, I would suggest Pitolo inside the distance. He does have some submission victories on his resume, but most of his wins are by knockout. A concern of mine watching Pitolo fight is his in-fight decision-making is a bit suspect if he doesn't get the knockout. So that's something to consider in that spot. When you're looking at fighters priced in that higher tier between $8,700 and $9,000 in DraftKings, you may want to spread some of that money around, but I'm going to be playing some Pitolo in this spot at $9,000. Give me Pitolo to win inside the distance. Next up, we've got a fascinating bout, another welterweight bout between Jake Matthews and Rustam-Akman. Rustam-Akman, this is his second UFC fight at 7,100 in DraftKings plus 305 underdog. Swedish fighter. To be honest, I'm curious how he was able to get this spot, because Jake Matthews, he's fought some stiff competition. He's fought Mr. Lee in the past, Kevin Lee. He was actually winning his recent fight against our friend Mr. Anthony Rocco Martin, but then got caught in an anaconda choke, and that was the end right there. So he, I believe, went unconscious. He went unconscious in that spot. In this spot here, I'm looking at Jake Matthews, who's coming in with a 14-4 record. Obviously, his loss to Andrew Holbrook a few years ago is a concern. Still only 25 years old. If you follow Jake Matthews' career over the year, he's had a very close relationship with his father, and his father has been advocating for decisions that he's made throughout his career. Now, Jake Matthews is a father, and he's a father himself. Seems to be motivated. I've seen him on Instagram in the gym with Jimmy Crute, and he's a big boy at 170 pounds. In this spot, this is expected to go to a decision. 9,100 in DraftKings for Jake Matthews. A concern of mine when watching the interviews, pre-fight interviews, is that Jake Matthews, he says that he's going to go for the finish here, and that he feels a sense of urgency, especially in front of the home crowd. So I do expect him to come out pretty aggressive, and if he isn't able to finish Akman, then we might have some issues. But I'll be honest, even though it's a concern, I like hearing that he was going to go for the finish in that spot. And at 9,100, I don't expect a lot of people to be on Matthews because of that that prop that it's expected to go to a decision. Akman has a deficiency as far as grappling goes, so Matthews is live to nail a submission in this spot, and I'm going to pick Jake Matthews to win. I actually am expecting him to win inside the distance. So give me Jake Matthews to win by submission in this spot. Next up, we have heavyweights, big boys. Both fighters came in at 265 pounds. In this spot, we've got Yorgan De Castro taking on Castro-Tafa. Castro-Tafa, believe it or not, this is one of those fights you got to be concerned about. Only 8 total professional bouts between the two of these combatants. Castro-Tafa coming in as a 3-0 professional, 8,300 in DraftKings, minus 130 favorite. All of his fights have come via stoppage. Fighting out of Australia, looks like Mark Hunt out there. Looks like Tai Tuivasa in there to some extent. The way he lands those lead-in uppercuts. When I'm watching the tape on this fight, there's obviously very limited tape, and then you look at Yorgan De Castro, 5-0 record. Last time out, we saw him against Alton Meeks. Massive, massive underdog. Only 4 months ago, this guy was a plus 550 underdog on the Contender Series. 31 years of age. Carries a huge amount of weight on him. I'll be honest. De Castro, he looks like the one of the most obese fighters I've seen on the UFC roster. 7,900 in DraftKings, plus 110 underdog. This fight is expected to finish at minus 390. The line has closed a bit. De Castro opened as a minus 170 favorite. In this spot, De Castro, if he isn't able to get off with those heavy leg kicks, and I have a hunch that Tafa is going to try to close the distance and isn't going to stay at range, then I have concerns for De Castro. I am going to be picking him to win in this fight, though. I think that he seems like a little bit more of the seasoned variety fighter compared to Tafa in this spot. Tafa has been prone to make big time mistakes out there, and these guys, we have no idea what's going to happen if this ends up into a second or third round. These guys are probably going to gas out pretty quick. Cardio does not seem like it's a priority at all. So you may want to play this fight in DraftKings. Give me De Castro to win inside the distance. Next up, we head to another welterweight bout. We've got Diego-Lima taking on Luke Jumeau. Luke Jumeau, 7,800 plus 125 underdog. Fighting out in New Zealand. Diego-Lima, the brother of Douglas Lima. We know Diego has had some massive chin issues in the past, but he seems to have those haven't come back to haunt Lima recently. 14-7 overall record, has been in the gym, possesses a legitimate ground game, comes in with a 5-inch reach in this spot. Recent victories over Chad Laprise as well as Court McGee. 8,400 for Lima, minus 145 favorite. Jumeau, he can be locked in at times during his fights, but then there are stretches where he lets his opponent come back into the fight, and I suspect that that's going to happen in this spot. I remember his fight against Dominique Steele a few years ago. Similar thing happened in that fight. In this bout, I think we've got a Diego-Lima who is more well-rounded, is capable of going 3 rounds, and is the rightly favorite in this spot. Believe it or not, Diego-Lima is the younger fighter also as well, 29 years of age. So he seems to be coming into his own. If you could only correct those chin issues. Can't do it, though. Can't do it. Maybe move up a weight class. Very closely lined spot here. And when you're hunting for underdogs, I can understand folks looking to target someone who has chin issues. And at 7,800, there is a chance that Jumeau comes out here and starches Lima, but I think more often than not, we're going to see Lima come through in this spot as the victor, and I will be picking Diego-Lima to win this fight by decision. I think the grappling will come into play, especially late in the fight. Next up, we've got we're almost at the co-main event of the evening. We've got Tai Tuivasa taking on Sergey Spivak. We've got heavyweights on our hands. Tai Tuivasa, 10-2 overall record. 75-inch reach, 9,300 in DraftKings, minus 385 favorite, taking on Spivak, who looked like a world beater on tape, but then you look at the opponents that he was facing, and they were cans. 6,900 in DraftKings, plus 305 underdog. Sergey Spivak was totally blown out of the water by Walt Harris. Still only 24 years old. This kid looks like he could make light heavyweight 233 pounds. Tai Tuivasa, big boy. A major concern of mine watching the Tai Tuivasa interviews is just that he is willing to throw caution to the wind. He doesn't give a crap about winning or losing. He's only 26 years of age, and he's trying to improve. He said he's lost to 2 champions, which is true, 2 previous champions. But from my perspective, Tuivasa is going to come in here looking to bang. He's got the home crowd behind him. He's dropped the ball in the past on home soil, and just his demeanor heading into this fight. Actually, in just about any interview you watch for him, the guy is so loosey-goosey, and he shows it in the cage that that's a dangerous spot. But this fight isn't expected to go to a decision at minus 410. Tuivasa, surprisingly athletic, comes in with the same physique every fight. Looks like he's carrying about 30 extra pounds. Give me Tuivasa to win by knockout. I think Spivak's going to run into another buzzsaw in this spot. Next up, we've got the co-main event of the evening. We've got Al Iaquinta taking on Daniel Hooker. Daniel Hooker, 18-8 overall record. Crazy that he has 8 losses, right? 8,500 in DraftKings, minus 170 favorite. Al Iaquinta, 14-5-1 record, 7,700 in DraftKings, plus 150 underdog. Iaquinta, 32 years of age at this point. I'm not sure if I've seen anybody do more with less than Al has. He, as far as time in the octagon, he has this cult following about him. I think ever since even before the Khabib fight, says what he means and will stick to his guns. In this spot, he wanted this matchup against Hooker. I do think that Iaquinta is outmatched from a skill perspective. I also think that Iaquinta is going to be at a disadvantage when it comes to, look at the reach, 5.5-inch reach advantage for Hooker. Moving up a weight class really has worked wonders for Hooker. A couple of fights ago, he took that horrific loss to Barbosa, but that has been behind him now. Disposed of James Vick, city kickboxing fighter, comes in with tremendous momentum. You look at who Hooker has beaten recently. He's got wins over Gilbert Burns, and this is a guy coming in with momentum. I'm concerned for Iaquinta in this spot, especially. I know he's never been TKO'd or KO'd, but that beating he took by Donald Cerrone, Longo and Serra have a great corner, and for some reason, they weren't ready to stay inside on Cerrone. That's the way that you beat him. He was eating knees, getting head kicked, and Iaquinta was comfortable fighting at range against Cerrone, and that is a recipe for disaster against Dan Hooker. So I'm interested to see if Iaquinta is going to be working in his wrestling here. He, in my eyes, has to if he wants to stay competitive in this fight. We know Iaquinta has balls of He went 5 rounds with Khabib Nurmagomedov. As far as DraftKings goes, I do like the Iaquinta at 7,700. I think he should be able to stay in the fight here and bring this fight to a decision. I'm also really interested to see what happens on the ground. And if this fight does go to a decision, we know that Iaquinta has been able to sneak out controversial decisions in the past. His bout with Jorge Masvidal, he's done that in the past. So from a wagering perspective, I would be staying away from this spot, but I'm going to be picking Hooker to win in this spot. Very close matchup, though, and that's the thing. Iaquinta's a dog. The big concern of mine also is the fight with Cerrone. That wasn't mentioned at all on the countdown show, which really bugged me. I don't know how you could just swipe that under the rug. That was besides the Nurmagomedov fight, that was the biggest fight of Al's career. All right, so next up, main event of the evening, we've got Robert Whittaker taking on Israel-Adesanya. Adesanya coming in with a 17-0 mixed martial arts record. We've seen him KO'd on the kickboxing scene. $8,000 in DraftKings, -110. And he's moved to a slight favorite at some sites. Robert Whittaker, also -110. Currently, shop around, you might be able to find him +100 out there. 8,200 in DraftKings for Robert Whittaker. Robert Whittaker coming off of 50 minutes inside of the octagon with Yoel Romero. Haven't seen him in a while. Let's cut to the chase. What can I tell you that you don't already know? We've seen the weigh-ins. We've seen Robert Whittaker. Looks like he added significant muscle to his frame. Israel Adesanya coming in with all the momentum in the world. Just a year and a half ago, he's making his UFC debut and just storming through, climbing the ladder. I got to see the fight with Brunson about a year ago and saw the composure that Adesanya showcased under the bright lights. In this spot, initially, all signs from my perspective were pointing to Adesanya and picking Adesanya in this spot. And I was planning to stay away in this spot, or maybe pick Adesanya. The surgeries for Whittaker have been a major concern. The layoff, his struggles with being motivated and going to the gym. Then I went back and I also watched the fight against Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. I look at the reach that Adesanya has, 6.5-inch reach advantage. I picked Gastelum to beat Adesanya in his last fight. Gastelum was able to have significant success on the inside. And I do believe that Robert Whittaker has a blueprint. The blueprint's out there to beat Adesanya. One of many concerns I have in this fight for Whittaker are Adesanya seems to address deficiencies fight to fight, and his ground game has improved. His cardio is there. This is Adesanya we're speaking about. His cardio is there. His ability to fight at range, that's one of his greatest strengths. And Whittaker, he has a puncher's chance here. He has the ability to take this fight to the ground. We haven't seen it that often, but I believe he does have the ability to do that in this spot. I wonder, behind the scenes, packing on these additional pounds, you can see it in his arms and his shoulders, what his game plan is. I think that there's a big quickness and footwork and speed advantage when it comes to Whittaker getting in and outside of the pocket, and the ability to unleash inside the pocket is going to be a big asset to Whittaker in this spot. I have been on the fence all week, initially initially staying away and slightly leaning Adesanya. In this spot, something tells me that Whittaker may surprise some folks here and is able to capitalize when he's inside on Whittaker. I mean, when he's inside on Adesanya. So I'm going to be. I know this might surprise some folks, but I'm actually, as an underdog in this spot, Whittaker has the ability to get the job done. This is such a closely lined fight. It's a pick 'em in my book. But if you're gonna give me dog odds on Whittaker, I like his ability to finish the job in this fight. And I know we haven't seen it before, but at plus 220, I believe it is, inside the distance for Whittaker, I think that might be something to look at. So if it goes the distance, and this fight is expected to end inside the distance at minus 160, I could see Adesanya winning this fight by decision. I'm actually going to be picking Whittaker in this spot. I think that he is going to surprise some people in here. He's at a huge reach at disadvantage, and this is one of those spots. A lot of the technical, the intangibles, a bunch of things are pointing in Adesanya's direction, but I feel like Whittaker, he's such a tough out, and I think we're also getting a bit of a warped view of things coming off of the two Romero fights, because Yoel Romero is he's a world beater, and I'm really interested to see what happens. But I understand, for staying away in this fight and watching from the sidelines, not a smart idea as far as DraftKings goes. But you want just to enjoy this as a fan. It's going to be a spectacle to watch the 55,000 plus in this arena. It should be an awesome fight. So very looking forward to this fight. We're going to unify the belts. Want to wish everybody a fantastic fight day out there. You can follow me on Twitter, MikesMMAPicks. This has been brought to you by MMA Oddsbreaker as well as BetDSI. Follow me over at Cavertech and BetMMA.tips. Everybody, have a great fight day, UFC 243. Next week, we've got the Orlando card. Awesome week ahead. Enjoy it.